Do you like plants? Do you like freedom? Well, in today's episode, I'm gonna be telling you the main reasons why not to buy a house in an HOA neighborhood. Yes, the houses look nice. Yes, life may be easier for some things, but I can guarantee you, if you like gardening, you like growing your own foods, you wanna be self-sufficient, an HOA neighborhood is not the place to live. I'm gonna be telling you the main reasons why not to buy a house, and also, if you already live in an HOA neighborhood, or if you really have to buy a house in an HOA neighborhood, I'm gonna be giving you a few tips what to look for towards the end. Alright guys, so if you don't know what an HOA is, it is a homeowners association. The houses are close together, cookie cutter houses like this, they all look the same, and they try to lure you in with flashy signs like moving specials, doggy spa, gated community, feel safe, less crime, OMG, doggy doors. They even have a clubhouse, and of course, private backyards where you can touch the back wall from inside your house. That's how big your backyards are going to be in HOA neighborhood. So let's talk about the reason number one, why not to buy in an HOA. Well, if you look at these houses right here, all the plants look the same. Do they look nice? Yes, they do. But I can tell you, if you are a gardener, especially a master gardener, and you want to show off your skills to everybody around you, how you are able to grow plants that are not common in your area because you have a green thumb, I can tell you an HOA is not going to be the way to go. Reason number one is going to be simply because an HOA has, most times, I would say 99% of the times, a plant list, an authorized plant list, meaning that you can only plant things in the ground from this list. You cannot plant vegetables in the front yard. I can tell you that is true for most HOAs out there. You cannot plant fruit trees in the front yard. That is true for most HOAs out there. So if you like plants, you want to be self-sufficient, you want to grow your own stuff, I can tell you this is not going to be the place to be. Now some of you guys are going to say, but I live in an HOA and I don't care about the front yard. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just gonna plant whatever I want in the back. Well, that is true for some of them. Let me tell you a story just to give you a perspective what it's like to live in an HOA. So I have this customer. She bought a house in a new HOA neighborhood. She planted trees in the back, towards the back wall, something like this over here, just to give her shade. She had been in the house for about a year. Then the neighbor behind her bought the lot, they built a house, and they built a pool. A year goes by, and then she gets a letter from the HOA telling her that she needed to remove the trees that she planted close to the wall because once those trees get older, they are going to damage the neighbor's pool. And not only are they going to damage the neighbor's pool, all the leaves are going to litter, fall in the pool, and it's going to cost the neighbor to spend more money. So guess what she had to do? She tried fighting it, but apparently the HOA, even though she had plants from the authorized list, that specific HOA had the power to tell her what to do, even after the fact she did the right thing. She tried fighting it, but at the end of the day, she lost. She had to remove those trees, even though she had been in that property for over a year before the neighbor behind her even built that pool. That is what it's like to live in an HOA. Now let me tell you another thing about HOAs. So let's say you want to plant trees in the backyard. Most HOAs allow you to plant fruit trees in the backyard, but they also have a not allowed plant list that you cannot plant whether it's in the front or in the back. A lot of you guys get away with planting, let's say, mulberry trees in the back. Even though in most HOAs here in Arizona, they are not allowed to be planted in the ground, you get away with it simply because of your neighbors. You have to understand, the type of people that live in an HOA is not the type of people that like freedom. It's not the type of people that want to be self-sufficient. It's the type of people that want to be told what to do. And on top of that, they want to tell other people what to do. So if you move into that type of neighbor, and that type of neighbor is next to you, guess what's going to happen when you do plant a mulberry tree? they're gonna see it over the wall and they're gonna call the HOA and tell on you. And that's gonna be the main problem most of you guys are gonna run into, planting trees in the ground that you think are allowed, but they are not. You're gonna be able to grow them for a few years, but then they're gonna get big enough where your neighbor's gonna be able to see them and you're gonna get reported, just like that. Another thing that you keep in mind about HOAs is, yes, you may be able to plant in the backyard, but I have seen many HOAs, especially like this one that I'm in right now. This is a higher scale HOA right here. The houses may not look like cookie cutter houses and the backyards are a little bigger than normal, but it's still an HOA. So what usually happens is, if you can see the trees over the wall, they're not allowed, even if you plant them in the backyard. Most HOAs don't really have that much space. The lots are very small because the builder tries to build houses as close as possible. So that doesn't really leave you that much space to plant trees. So what usually happens is, even if you have trees that are allowed in the neighborhood, if your neighbor has a problem, you need to read your CC&Rs, because if your neighbor has a problem with your plant, even if it's allowed, guess what's gonna happen? They're gonna report you, and then at the end of the day, you're gonna have to remove that plant. And usually you're not going to find that out until your tree is old, and it's gonna really hurt having to dig up a tree that's doing well in the ground, that's giving you food, that's making you self-sufficient because somebody got offended next door. So what are some of the excuses people make when buying into an HOA? They say the houses are more affordable. Everything else that is not an HOA, it's more expensive. And I find that funny because the main sell point of an HOA neighborhood is to keep the prices higher than other neighborhoods that are not HOAs. Well, I can tell you in my area, non-HOA property, non-HOA houses go for a lot more than a house in an HOA, simply because the only neighborhoods that you're gonna find nowadays that are not HOA are usually older neighborhoods. And the system has created this on purpose. They want you to buy in HOA neighborhoods so that way they can tell you what to do. A lot of the rules, a lot of the regulations that HOAs put in place take a lot of your freedoms. And if you want to sue them, there's really not much you can do, because guess what? They didn't force you, they didn't make you sign. You bought into the HOA, and at the end of the day, it was your choice. One of the things that I've noticed is the devil never forces you to do anything. But what it does, it makes it hard for you to make the right choice. Alright guys, so I gave you a few tips why not to buy a house in an HOA neighborhood. So I know a lot of you guys already have your houses and you're wondering, I'm doomed. What do I do now? Well, I'm gonna be giving you a few tips what you can do to get away with things if you live in an HOA neighborhood. So tip number one is going to be, so let's say you want to plant something in the ground. And it's gonna be in the front yard even. Maybe a fruit tree, maybe something that is not common in your area. So what can you do about it? How can you get away with it? Well, my recommendation for you to do is get that plant list from your HOA neighborhood, and then find a plant that looks similar to the plant that you want to put in the front, or that plant that you want to put in the back. Something that looks similar. And if you ever get reported, just reply back with a picture of that plant, and then tell them this is it, from their plant list. They won't know any better. These people have no clue about trees. And this is what I tell all my customers. If you get reported, if you want to grow something, you really want to, you have no choice to sell your house and buy something else, well, just pick a plant from the plant list, something that looks similar to that fruit tree you really want, and then just stick it in the ground. If you ever get reported, just tell them it is that plant and they won't know any better. That's tip number one. Alright guys, tip number two. So let's say you're moving into an HOA that allows you to plant trees that you want in the backyard. Well, make sure that you do not buy a house that has a see-through fence like this one right here. If it has a see-through fence, most HOAs, I would say 99% of them, they can tell you what to plant in the backyard. And most of them are not gonna allow you to plant fruit trees in the backyard, even though your neighbor next door is able to, simply because you have a see-through fence and they do not. Another thing with a see-through fence is the HOA will tell you exactly what you can plant in the back and how many trees you can actually put in the back as well. So unless you really like to be told what to do, even inside your house, inside your property, do not buy a house that has a see-through fence like this. Tip number 3. So you already live in an HOA neighborhood and you really want to plant something in the ground, and you don't want to offend somebody, because people get offended very easily nowadays. Well, my recommendation for you is to get really good at pruning. Yes, you're gonna have to prune your stuff, and make sure you keep it short, and make sure you plant it in the back away from people, because a lot of people, as soon as they see something fruiting, something that is not common, they get offended very easily and they get on a power trip and they're gonna report you. I guarantee you, a lot of people in this world are two-faced. They will smile on your face, and the minute you turn around, they're gonna stab you in the back. So get good at pruning and keep your stuff pruned short, so that way you can plant things that you really like in the backyard of your house. Now, I'm not saying an HOA is a bad thing. There are a lot of people out there that don't like other people. They like to be told what to do. They want everything to look the same. And they like the government and other people to tell them what to do. Those people, they fit right in an HOA neighborhood. I am not that type of people. I like my freedom. I want to be self-sufficient. I want to grow my own things. And definitely, I do not like to be told what to do. So HOAs look really nice, especially for somebody that's buying their first home, because most of them are affordable. But I can tell you, all these plants right here, yes, they do well in the desert. They look nice. They're lower maintenance than a lot of the fruit trees that I grow. But I can tell you, these plants right here, they don't take any more water than my Barbados cherry. So if you're gonna grow something like this, why not grow something that's gonna give you fruit too? I know a lot of you guys like grass, but grass gives you nothing. Why not grow something that, for the same amount of water, is actually gonna feed you at the same time? Okay, next step, guys, and that is, do not buy a house in an HOA where you can literally touch the fence or the wall from inside your house. I mean, look at how tiny these yards are over here. This one right here, I can guarantee you, if you want to grow fruit trees, if you want to grow flowers, or anything else besides a boring tree, it's just not going to happen. And even if they do allow you to plant things that you like, I mean, come on, look at that little space right here. How are you going to grow a tree in that tiny little space? So this is a future right here, guys. This is on purpose. This is intentional. They make these houses that you see right here affordable because they know most people are going to choose to buy a house in an HOA neighborhood like this over a house that has more property, simply because these houses here are going to be more affordable. This is intended, this is part of the plan, because they want to control you. If you have never lived in an HOA, you do not know what I'm talking about. But if you currently live in an HOA, or you have lived in an HOA in the past, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They can tell you what type of car you can drive. They can tell you what you can have in the backyard. They can tell you how many people you can have in your house. They can control your life a lot more than outside your house. How funny that is. And on top of that, guess what? You want to be self-sufficient? That's not going to happen here. This right here, you're going to depend on the government to provide food, water, and everything else for you. Whatever the government says, that's exactly what you're going to have to do. You want to be your own person? That's not going to happen in a neighborhood like this. But there you go, guys. Those are some of the main reasons why not to buy a house in an HOA. I despise HOAs because they have taken over my neighborhood. When I moved into my neighborhood, all this right here, everything you see around me, was cotton and corn. There was a farmer who owned this land, who made a living providing to other people. But then the system made it very difficult for this farmer to keep going by raising water rates, putting water restrictions, raising taxes, making everything more expensive, to the point where the farmer had no choice but to sell his land just to be able to pay his bills. And you know who bought this land? A developer. A developer is sponsored by the system. This developer probably gets tons of tax breaks. Probably even gets free money just to build a neighborhood like this. This neighborhood right here, like I said, was full of cotton, corn everywhere. And now it's full of houses. The only reason I moved into my neighborhood was because I wanted to be away from people. I do not like the city. I do not like the traffic. I do not like the noise. I wanted to be at peace, mind my own business. But guess what? In just a matter of about 7 years, everything around me turned from corn cotton to a neighborhood like this, an HOA neighborhood. I despise them. Because not only do they take away people's freedoms and rights, they also take away the farmland that was being used to provide for my community. But anyways, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to like it. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? And I will see you next time.